Okay, we have just about 34 minutes. Let's do it. This week's parsha is Parshas Boy. And of course, in addition to being Shabbos Parshas Boy, it's also Shabbos Yud Shvat for us. That week Yud Shvat was a Wednesday. That year Tafshin Nun Beis Yud Shvat was a Wednesday. So the Sicha is very much focused on Chasidim Amitim here. Why? So this week's Sicha, in addition to being tremendously focused on the parsha, it's also very much not just connected, but the very big theme of this week's Sicha is actually going to be about Yud Shvat, as we will see. And we're jumping straight into it. Parshas Boy, famously, the Zohar says, it says, Boil Parei, come to Parei. Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, come to Parei. The diuk over here is that Hashem says come, and He doesn't say go by yourself, indicating that for whatever reason, Moshe Rabbeinu has a reason to be nervous going into Parah by himself, to the point that Hashem has to offer personal escort. Now, before we even get involved in the teichen of what that even means, what Moshe Rabbeinu exactly was scared of, and so on and so forth, the Rebbe wants to understand why is the name of the parasha Parshas Boy. We know that for 2.5 parshas at this point, the Yidden are in exile. Shmois, Ve'era, and the first part of Parshas Boy. Finally, the end of Parshas Boy, whatever, the second half of Parshas Boy. By the way, today's Chumash is extremely long. Whoever didn't have a chance to do it.
I didn't.
You did the whole Chumash today?
No, I did half.
I did.
Yeah?
I did the whole Chumash today. I did.
Woohoo! Yeah, you back did the whole. Wow. Wait, yeah, train line?
I have a chavrusa with Josh Gordon.
How long was he today for? Like 45 minutes, probably, no?
If you keep it on regular speed, it's 50 minutes.
Today's 50 minutes. Wow.
But if you do 1.5,
Right. It slices it a little bit. Wow. That's an investment. It's almost as long as Rambam. I mean, the Kuda is.
Metro North allows me to do that.
Right, yeah, I was going to say. That's what I was asking you. There's a train ride.
Metro North.
By the way, no jokes, learning on the train. I love it so much. Today was probably beautiful, no?
Until they asked me to drive the train. Then
Anyhow, Kuda is that this week's parsha is Parshas Geula. We talk about the Yidden going out of Mitzrayim. But the name of the parsha is Parshas Boil Parei. Something doesn't match. The name of the parsha indicates the opposite teichen of the Geula. Boil Parei means Moshe Rabbeinu is too scared to go himself to Parei. Why is he too scared? However way you twist it, it's because Parei is powerful. More powerful than what Moshe can handle by himself. At least the way he thinks of himself. To the point that Hashem has to offer, not leich, not go yourself, but boy, we'll go together. Clearly indicating that the teichen of the parasha, boy, Parei, is Parei being in power.
And usually it says lake.
So it's interesting to ask that question. Last week's parsha we also had the lashon of Boil Parei, but yeah, ideally the lashon should, the proper grammar should be leich. We're not saying that it's the first time that it's mentioned, but we are pointing out that it's the name of the parsha. And the name of the parsha should mean that it includes in the teichen of the whole parsha. But the name of the parsha seems to be a contradiction to the teichen of the parsha. The name is galus, Parei is in power, and the teichen of the parsha is the Geula. Not just that, take it a step further, we all know that the Geula out of Mitzrayim is actually the beginning process of the Geula Amitis Vashlema. The beginning process of the ultimate redemption. So the name of the parasha, which is describing the beginning of not just Geulas Mitzrayim, but the name of the parasha, which is the beginning of the process of the Geula, all the way to the Geula Amitis Vashlema, the name should for sure be some like crazy Geula name, like something that like encapsulates like the beginning process of the coming of Mashiach, which is the way we look at Yitzias Mitzrayim. It's like the beginning process of going out of all the Mitzrayim of Mashiach's coming. But the name just doesn't fit. The name is Boil Parei, come into Parei. How does that show Mashiach? How does that show on Gula? Even Gula out of Mitzrayim has that show on. So to understand this, we have to start going a little bit deeper. What is, of course, Boel Pari? Understanding what Boel Pari is will, of course, explain to us how this is a Geolytic thing and why the name is actually very appropriate. Let's go into it. The Zohar describes to us, on the most basic level, that Pari, of course, represents a very high level of Klippa, meaning a very, very low level of Klippa, meaning within the world of Klippa, extremely strong Klippa. To the point that Moshe Rabbeinu felt that for me to elevate this Klippa will be impossible. If I would go, it's such a low Klippa that if I go into this Klippa, I will not be successful in elevating it. Rather, it's going to have the reverse effect. It's going to schlep me down. The way the Zohar describes it is very fascinating. The Zohar describes it that you have the big crocodile, which is bathing inside his ponds. A Tanyan Agadol, which is Reivitz B'Seich Ye'irav. He's a crocodile inside his palace, his dynasty, his Nile. And then around there's a whole bunch of lights that comes out of him, meaning a whole bunch of lower levels that sort of spring out of his, of his main hangout place. And Moshe Rabbeinu was coming level within level, Adrin Basar Adrin, room within room, closer and closer to the Tanin Harevitz B'Seichi Eirav, closer and closer to this big crocodile. And the Zohar basically describes that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't mind talking to the crocodile as long as this big crocodile was a little bit further out of his, core station palace. As long as the crocodile was a little bit out of its own comfort, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to deal with it. But the way the crocodile is in his primary location, in other words, with his full strength, that Moshe Rabbeinu felt like that I can't handle. Which Beruchnius, of course, obviously means that the lower level of Klippa, the way it's mispasha, the way the Klippa comes down into the world, whatever, that Moshe Rabbeinu felt like he could deal with. But the Klippa, the way it is for itself, in its deepest core, that's Moshe Rabbeinu needed Boel Pari. Okay, Atkan is the Zohar. Okay, now...
Well, how is this coming to Paro any different than the first 7 malchus where he did go to Paro?
Right, so it's a good question. So we pointed out, actually, in last week's parsha also, the Lashon was Boel Pari. Interesting enough. Wow, the spicy food now. All right.
Wait a second. Hold on a second.
Very good.
Oh, good. You got your flip-flops. I wasn't sure because I wanted to make sure you had your flip-flops.
It's better than the pink sweaters going around, by the way. Oh wow, the mafia, the full gang has arrived. Now we're officially ready to rock the house. We're making it hot. It used to be cold. You
said a bracha, but we never said l'chaim.
So it's a l'chaim, thank you. It's a l'chaim, Reuben. A l'chaim, it's a reunion also. Chaim l'rocha. Let's get schmucks in together.
Keep up the good work.
Amen.
He wants ice. Some water and ice.
This week for you is like borrowed, like the ice and the fire inside together.
Some people break the ice to fish. We're going to break the ice and go swimming.
Well, what a phrase! So the Nakuda is like this. Atkan, it makes sense. Atkan, this Zohar, makes sense. Why was Moshe Rabbeinu scared? He's talking about a very intense level of Klippa. But this point in the Sikha now is the official shifting point where everything gets turned upside down. We know that everything that exists in this physical world comes from a much higher level of Beruchnius. In fact, the lower something exists in this world is only because it comes from a much higher level of Beruchnius. In our case, Pare, the lowest level of Klippa that possibly exists, as the famous Haftarah says, it's the deepest level of Klippa where a person is where Pare is so self-absorbed that he even treats himself like a god, whatever that's supposed to mean. The bottom line is, Pare, the lowest level of Klippa, obviously comes from which level of Kedusha? The answer is the highest level of Kedusha possible. In fact, this level of Pare, the word Pare literally, Priya, means to reveal, to unveil. That's why by a bris milah, there's a bris and there's Priya. Priya means to unveil that which was concealed. That's what the word Pare means. So in fact, in Kedusha, the Rebbe says, what is Priya? Priya actually, what is Pari? What's this level of Pari? Represents the deepest level of Hashem. Pari. It's even your friend Charvoino is not as high as this guy, by the way. Yeah, he's not as high as Pari. Even Achashverosh is not as high as Pari, because the Achashverosh is only a level of Achashverosh Shaloi. Over here, Pari is Isperu Minei Kol Me'irin. It is the source of all Giluim of Seder Shtalshalus. Meaning, the concept of being so independent and nothing else exists other than me only exists in one level of Seder Shtalshalus, and that is the Eibishter himself. Any level past that already has some sort of bittul of like, okay, I'm only ha'ara from a higher level than me. But the level of a nive afsioid is only atmos mahos. So the level of klipa, which is so extreme into the feeling of a nive afsioid, obviously is rooted in that deepest level of kedusha that feels a nive afsioid. So in other words, Pare of klipa is an actual embodiment, or better to say, it's what was nishtalshel from the highest possible level of Gilui Ha'atzmos L'Mos, the Gilui of the Eibishter himself.
Just like Esav was from a higher source, you're saying Paro is from the ultimate. There's no higher source that anything comes from other than Paro.
Exactly. Okay, now comes the question. So now, if we look at Pare from this lens, so me and you look at Pare. I don't know if I would want to look at the guy, but if we would have the
1.5 by 1.5 by 1.5.
Amis. Yeah, I don't know if it was dimensional,
Wow.
but definitely height-wise. So, if we would look at Pari, what would we see? We would for sure see the Klipa side. But the question is like this: Moshe Rabbeinu, when he looked at Pari, what did he see? He saw his source. He didn't just see the way he exists in this world. Moshe Rabbeinu is Seichel de Kedusha. Moshe Rabbeinu is Chochmah de Atzilus. That means his analyzing process, his chips that he got from China work differently than our processor. He actually looks at Pare, he sees the way this klipa is rooted in Kedusha.
Moshe got chips from China? Where does it say that here? Okay.
So now the question is, if Moshe Rabbeinu looked at Pare and he saw such a high level of Kedusha, so then we're back to square one. So what was he so scared of? Why did Hashem have to say Baal Pare, which means let's go together, if Moshe Rabbeinu sees Pare the way he's sourcing Kedusha? Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't have a reason to be scared. So for this, the Rebbe go, oh, very good, Mandy, very good. Come in a suspicious moment. Oh, suspicious moment, sorry.
Suspicious.
Suspicious. So the part is, someone comes to Rebbe and says, Elamai, we have to re-understand, we have to reanalyze this whole concept of coming into Pare. What exactly is going on over here?
After all, he did stand in front of the burning bush, which was a Giloi. Obviously a different Giloi.
Right.
He was told to take off his shoes.
No.
I mean,
so that's the point. That's what I was building towards. That's what I was building towards, which is how much could Moshe Rabbeinu, which levels could Moshe Rabbeinu handle? Let's get there. Let's let the Sikha unfold for a moment. So again, Mendy, just to summarize, Moshe Rabbeinu is terrified to go into Pare. Hashem has to tell him, Baal Pare. If we're talking about Pare of Klipa, we understand why he's terrified to go into Pare. But because Pare also primarily is sourcing Kedusha, the question is, how come it says Baal? Why does Hashem need to support Moshe? Why could Moshe Rabbeinu not handle it himself? And the answer is, says the Rebbe like this. As we said, Pare represents, not just represents, the word Priya itself means a tremendous gilui of Atzmos U'Mahos. A gilui of the Eibishter himself, not the way he comes down to a level, not the way he tries making himself presentable through tzimtzumim and silukim and helemis and estatim. Rather, Pare is a level of the Eibishter being revealed both in quantity and in quality. Meaning, in quality, we're talking about a level of Hashem which is not a ha'ara. It's not a lower level of Hashem, meaning it's not Hashem the way he's trying to present himself. Rather, it's pure Eibishter. And in quantity as well, it's Hashem the way he reveals himself in such a way that he's not trying to be presented through a specific level. So both the level which is being revealed and the level and the way it's being revealed, you get a genius guy giving over a very deep intellectual idea, but if he finds the right words to embodiment, for example, the prime example for this is, of course, the Rebbe. The The Rebbe always covers the deepest sugyas in Chassidus, and in Nigle also, all the deepest chikiras of the Rogachovi. But the Rebbe says it's so simple and so like, the words are just so simple that, very good word. Very clear, to the point that like Balabatim are sitting there and they're like, okay, this is simple stuff. Meanwhile, the Rebbe is talking about if the Rebbe would have just chosen the regular words the way they're usually referred to, everyone would lose their hands and feet. Okay, so the point is...
And likewise, people who take the Rebbe's words in 2024 and sit at a table with steak and cookies and give that over.
Exactly.
That also.
Mamish like that. And the Rebbe is so self-spoken also. It's like so self-explanatory.
Wait, am I right?
Alright,
Wait, you got your flip-flops still? I don't want you to lose those. If you lose those, we're in trouble.
Yeah, we sure are.
So the Nakuda is that when it comes to the way something is revealed has a tremendous effect on the actual content, and therefore, in our case, when we say that Parei is a very deep level of Hashem being revealed, but the way it's being revealed is in a very wild way. The Lashon is in the Zohar, Isperiu minei kol ne'orin, all levels of light just burst out of him. We're talking about a level of Hashem which is so undefined and is so unlimited to the point that the concept of coming down into a limit and coming down into a vessel doesn't even exist in that level. Okay, so now that we have this whole Akdama, we're able to go a little bit deeper into why Moshe Rabbeinu was scared to go into Parei. Moshe Rabbeinu understood if I go into Parei, if I expose myself to this high level of a Gilui of the Eibishter himself, I may have a klesa nefesh. My body is finite. It's limited. It's physical. My mind is physical, at least the way the mind exists inside a physical body. If I expose myself to this deep level of kedusha, again, it's not only that he was concerned about the klipa part, because he saw the source. He saw what kind of level of kedusha Parei is. He understood if I get exposed to this level, it's going to be such an awesome experience. I don't know how I'm going to contain myself in a physical body. And he tells this to Hashem. He tells Hashem, I don't know if it's a good idea. And that's why when Parei tells us, Hashem comes and down, Hashem tells them, Boil Parei, come, we'll go together. Meaning that the say, I was the one who created, we're going to address this, which level this is soon, but basically, I'm able to combine and I'm able to give you the koyach, the ability, the capability, the capacity to be able to handle such an awesome experience, such a great gilui of Elokos, of the Sherish of Parei, and at the same time maintain yourself in a physical body. Just one last beautiful touch before we jump into the crux of the issue over here, is that's why when Parei tells him, you're not going to be able to see my face anymore. And Parei tells him, the day you're going to see my face again, you're going to die. And it says that Moshe Rabbeinu agreed with him. Moshe Rabbeinu was happy with it. Today's Rashi says that Moshe Rabbeinu was frustrated about it. But the bottom line is that Moshe Rabbeinu agreed that it's true. Now,
I wonder, what was he so angry about?
So according to the Sikha, it's hard to understand what he was angry about. Because he really agreed with Parei. He told Parei, I agree with you. You are such a high level of Kedusha. The only reason why I'm able to handle such a level like you is because Boil Parei, is because Hashem is escorting me personally and He's giving me the koyach that my finite body should be able to handle such an infinite Gilui, as we will explain at length in a moment. So when Parei tells him, by the way, you should just know, if you wouldn't be here with Hashem, you would for sure have a klesa nefesh. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I know. I wasn't planning on coming in the first place. I didn't think I would be able to handle this. Fine. Okay, so now, according to all this, let's jump straight into the explanation. We all understand the gvul limit is a contradiction to bli gvul. It's a contradiction to being unlimited. It's a very basic thing. Can't take something which is unlimited. Meaning, unlimited means it's not based on any definition. Its existence is pure. A pure existence, like for example, our neshama is a pure existence in a body, out of a body. It's irrelevant. A person is bigger, a person is smaller, a person is younger, a person is old. It's irrelevant. The neshama is a pure existence. It's impossible to box the neshama into a physical box. We all understand that. And the reason is because The neshama is made out of a different type of DNA. It's made out of a DNA of something which is pure. It's not composed out of any details. If it's not composed out of any details, there is no details to hold on to. No details to hold on to equals it being unlimited. It's just an unlimited being. Gvul, of course, is the opposite, where its whole existence is defined. It's based off details. And whatever the details are, that's what defines, that's what limits, and in fact, that's what reveals the existence that we're talking about, whatever existence that we're talking about is. So in the world of Elokos, when we talk about Gvul and Bli Gvul, there's two ways of how Hashem could be revealed. Hashem could be revealed either in the way of Bli Gvul, which means it's a level of Hashem, the way Hashem doesn't bother, quote unquote, being mitzamtzim himself. So the result is it's just a pure level of Elokos. Of course, Gvul is the opposite, where Hashem keeps himself very busy to create different kelim, chesed, gvura, tiferes, oiros, oilamos, different worlds, and slowly but surely develops a whole system of how Hashem is revealed in a very specific way, to the point that Hashem is fully present over here and fully revealed, but in a way that we don't even recognize him. And that's the accomplishment of Gvul. So when Gvul and Bli Gvul want to meet, it's impossible. Meaning impossible in the sense that it's two opposite types of existence. Moshe Rabbeinu, this is what he was scared of course. I don't want to bump into Bli Gvul. I'm going to, one out of the two. Either it's going to stop being Bli Gvul, which that's not happening. So the only other alternative is that my Gvul existence will become Bli Gvul. In other words, my defined existence will become undefined, meaning I'm going to let go of my definition. I'm going to let go of my personality. I'm going to be letting go of my character traits. I'll be letting go of my physical way of thinking. I'll be letting go of any tangible pleasure. I'll be letting go of myself. Self in the sense of like physical self, human self. Self miloshin like hargash sayesh. I'll be letting go of myself.
That's not the whole point of Yetzias Mitzrayim, though?
Not to the extreme of escaping who we are.
It's
Meaning,
the fusion, no? That's what Matera is, right?
No, Matan Torah is an infusion in the sense that we want to combine the two.
That's what I'm saying. The fusion.
Right, but over here he's gonna lose his gvul.
Why? Why can you have to come back?
Because it's just two opposite existences. Wait, 1 second. We're getting there. First, we're explaining what he's concerned about. He's concerned that if I go through, if I'm so fine, I'm a gvul person, not just bigashmius, but in the character, in the yeshus, in the mindset, what a human being represents, the individuality of a human is be'etzim limited. So the question is, so he was concerned that if I go to Paroi, I'll be very inspired, I'll be on a high, but to say that my character and who I am has transformed, I can't say that. I could say I lost myself. I became absorbed in a higher level. And in that case, he was probably even concerned about Klis Nefesh, of completely leaving his physical body, which is the next step than what we're talking about.
All because Paro is Bli Gvul energy?
Because the source of Paroi, which me and you, I mean maybe you and me personally and regular human beings, will never be able to tap into this aspect of Paroi. Paroi has a very high source, right? And the rule is the lower something falls, the deeper it comes from. So regular human beings like us, this whole conversation doesn't even start, because all we would see is very deep klipa. But Moshe Rabbeinu he had the perspective of the Torah, and he had the perspective of Chochmah Vatzilus. So he was able to tap into the source. So yeah, when he saw Paroi, a very low level of klipa, he also saw its source, and he understood that when walking into Paroi, he understood that he's going to be surrounded by this energy, which me and you, I mean personally, of course, obviously, I would not be able to tap into that. Because we see physical, that's all we see. But Moshe Rabbeinu, yes, like the Rebbe, the Rebbe sees a Yid. What does the Rebbe see? The Rebbe sees a neshama, the source of this person, why his neshama came down into the world. The Rebbe sees a whole different picture of a person because he sees the source, he sees where he comes from, where the previous Gilgul was even. The Rebbe is able to see a much broader picture of an existence than regular people. And Moshe Rabbeinu had that perspective on Paroi. Okay, so now this being said, what's the Eibish's answer? The Eibish's answer is everything you're saying is true and fine. For who? For limited creation. For a nivra mugbal. Meaning, who created the whole Mendi with us? Who created this whole concept of Gvul and Bli Gvul? Ultimately, the answer is the Eibishter. Meaning, there's a level which we refer to as Atzmus U'Mahus, which is the Eibishter himself. This level of the Eibishter, once upon a time, nothing existed. The concept of Gvul did not exist. And guess what? If the concept of gvul didn't exist, then the concept of bli gvul also didn't exist. Nothing existed besides for atzmos umos. Then Hashem decides, I'm going to create worlds. And in the world, there's going to be gvul, there's going to be bli gvul. There's different levels. There's the way it exists in the higher level, the way it exists in the lower level. But the point is, I'll create these two opposite forces. There's like tnuah of bli gvul, there's tnuah of gvul, the koyach of bli gvul, the koyach of gvul. Hashem is I'm going to create both of these types of notions. Oh, let's stop for a moment and analyze that. That means that even bli gvul, let's say it in better words, that means that bli gvul is not a better expression of the Eibishter than gvul. Because both bli gvul and gvul are equal tools that Hashem created in order to create a world with it. That means that both of them equally are not Hashem. That also means that both of them are equally lower than Hashem, meaning outside of Hashem, a creation from Hashem. So Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Eibishter, Hashem, these two forces that you created are a contradiction in their essence. Hashem's response was, Moshe Rabbeinu, I created both of these tools. That means that in my eyes, they're both equal. So as long as you, Moshe, become elevated and look at these two forces from my perspective and the perspective of the Creator, you're also going to see it from my view, which is that it's not a contradiction. It's just two forces that balance each other. So as long as you define yourself as a mugbal dika nivra, as a limited finite being, yes, you are a contradiction to bli gvul. Bli gvul will definitely make you lose your character. But if you elevate yourself, which you can't do on your own, but I'll offer you this perspective. If you elevate yourself to look at it from the perspective of the creator of atzmos umahus, that's the shirish of gvul, the shirish of bli gvul, and you'll be able to see how bli gvul and gvul are actually two pawns and two hands and two tools that I am creating in order to balance my creation together. So they're not contradiction, they're actually working together. They balance each other off. But you're only going to feel this way and experience it this way if you become elevated. If I elevate you to Baal Pari, to do this together.
So we need a paro in this world? We need a paro?
The answer is 100%. And in this context, the reason why we need pari is we're not focusing so much on the klipa part of it, which is also true, obviously, to allow us to have free choice. But in this context, the reason why we need pari is in order to expose us to this very high level of elokos that we don't even find in kedusha. That Moshe Rabbeinu felt that this level of kedusha, meaning this type of source that fell so low, is something which kedusha on its own doesn't even have. Famously, sure, like you said before about Esav, just for example, that Esav was actually higher than Yaakov. Meaning, when things fall lower, really it's because they come from a much higher level. That's why we always say, Rav Tvu is b'koyach shir. We're gonna, all of us become much more elevated once our Nefesh Bahamas comes on board, because it comes from a much deeper level, which Kedusha on its own doesn't actually have access to. Yes, 100% we're gonna need Pari, but in this
you think
Sikha,
Pari is higher than Moshe?
for sure.
Yeah.
That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was scared to go into him himself. And
Like Esav was
Pari.
higher than Yaakov.
Esav is, yeah.
Like Esav was.
That's why Hashem had to
I did
say,
always backward.
Baal
Wait,
Pari.
when Mashiach comes,
Is that why Chabad drinks so much?
It's just revealed.
Yeah, but when Mashiach comes, this level of Pari, the Kedusha level will be revealed, but by default, the way it's nishtalshal and the klipa will cease to exist. Meaning the Pari, the way we, me, you, regular people perceive it in this world, that will stop existing. But what will be revealed is its shadish.
Which means that we're going to hold more of Pari than Moshe Rabbeinu?
Pari is going to stop being Pari the way we're thinking of it. It's going to be Atzmos Umahos.
It's going to be Priya.
This level of Atzmos Umahos, the deepest level of Hashem being revealed, that's what we're referring to in the Sikha as Pari. So it's not going to be this midget sitting on a throne. It's going to be a high level of Atzmos Umahos.
So Hamas comes from a very, very high source.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Oh.
It's straight up scary. I was
Is
about
that
to
what-
say,
is that what we're saying?
Power of our generation.
Hitler Yamach Shmoy.
Sinwar?
Yeah, is this Menachem, is that consistent?
It's
So
kind of crazy.
I'll
but,
tell you what's interesting. The first thing which we have to appreciate, which by the way we're smack in the middle of the explanation, so maybe we shouldn't get too sidetracked yet. But one thing which we have to appreciate is that we don't have access to the shayrish of things, which is why it's important to appreciate that, you read about I know that Levi always says that Charvaina is his favorite character. I don't want anyone to develop a good relationship with Pare over here. Pare is not a good guy, he's a bad guy. No, don't.
What did you say?
I like him.
First, don't. And I'll tell you why. First of all, he doesn't understand Hebrew, so he's not gonna get a lot of your jokes. But second of all, and most importantly, most likely is because we're not gonna be able to. For us, he's an anti-Semite, which bathes in Jewish kids' blood, and he's looking to torture Jews in every possible way. And that's the way.
Anti-Semites are coming from a higher source, you're telling us.
Right, that's my point. My point is that we don't have access to the higher source. So Moshe Rabbeinu let him have this conversation with Hashem. Us, all we see in our limited reality is we see the klipa element, which we have to break.
But when we learn Chassidus, in our minds, we understand something else.
Right, so we understand something else, 100%, and we're smacking all the explanation of the relevance of how this translates into us. But in regards, I just want to clarify which levels we have access to, which levels we don't have access to. It's just important to have our moment, that observation.
It's enough to make someone start drinking.
Okay, so now, the goes like this. So far, what are we walking out with? So far, we're walking out with Moshe Rabbeinu being exposed to the high level, the high shayrish of Parei. Following that, we discussed that Moshe Rabbeinu was scared to have a place in Nefesh, that Gvul will be overwhelmed by Bli Gvul. Hashem comes in by saying, Habibi, I'm the one who created Gvul, I'm the one who created Bli Gvul, and therefore, guess what? I'm going to give you the ability to experience, and here's the point that we didn't yet explain, and now we're moving forward in the Sikha, okay? So, I'm going to give you the ability, as a finite human being, as a limited being, I'm going to give you the ability to connect to Bli Gvul. So you're going to be a limited person, which in English means you're going to have the regular human perspective on things. You're going to appreciate what the taste of Elam Haza is. You're going to understand what it means to be an individual, to have free choice. But at the same time, you're going to be exposed, and not just exposed, you're going to become one with. It's going to be revealed to you the level of Bli Gvul. So your character will be an expression, and will shine through it. What will shine through it? The level of Bli Gvul, the purity of Hashem. So imagine Moshe Rabbeinu fully experiencing Achdus Hashem, fully experiencing the Ened Nuvadoi, fully experiencing that Parei is Peru Minei Kol Nehedin, the Eibishter himself. Nothing else in this world not just doesn't matter, nothing else in this world even exists. But all of this is being understood and appreciated by his mind, by his human mind, and by his human experience. This is called Gvul and Bli Gvul connecting together. It's awesome. It's amazing. Now, the Rebbe moves on to show, by the way, this fits very well with the famous part of the story that we all know. And once we connect the dots, we say, wow, that's Mamish Lamizmo. It's the same exact story. It's the same pattern. Hashem comes to Moshe Rabbeinu by the burning bush. And he tells him, listen, go in the Yidden and out of Mitzrayim. What's Moshe Rabbeinu's response? Kvad pe v'chvad loshen anoichi. Eibishter, I can't talk, I stutter. Meaning, Apichsadas, what does that mean? Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Hashem, I am Oir, which is beyond a Kli. Huh? Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, I'm a Or, which is beyond Kalim. I'm not Shayach to be Mislabish and Kalim. In other words, when he was going into Paro, he was worried that he's going to completely disconnect from the Kalim. But already from the beginning, he had this challenge of like, my Oiris and my Kalim are not so balanced in life. I'm a wild guy. I feel, because I'm crazy for you, Eibishter. I love Torah. I love Atzmus Umahos. I'm not good with like the physical world. It's even expressed that in my physical body, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying about himself, he has a hard time, he stutters. Because the goof is not a kli, it's not a nice, beautiful vessel to express this level of Bli Gvul. In other words, he's telling Hashem, my Gvul and Bli Gvul didn't yet connect together. So Hashem, what did Hashem respond to him? Hashem What did we say Hashem responded regarding Parei? Atzmus Mahos is higher than Gvul and Bli Gvul, and I'll connect the two. That's exactly what Hashem answers to them. Mi Sam Pela Adam. Who created the whole concept of speech? Meaning, who created the whole concept of Kalim? Me. If I created the concept of Kalim, of speech, and I created, of course, the concept of Eiris, which is what you're living in, that means I have the ability to combine the two together. I have the ability to combine the Eiris and the Kalim together, to make you, your body, a Kli for the Eir. Moshe Rabbeinu was still arguing, Shlach Nabiat Tishlach. No, listen, Eibishter, what was Shlach Nabiat Tishlach? So simple taitches, send them with Mashiach. Anyways, I'm not going to be the last one to take them to the Gila Mitzvah Shlema. So let the process begin with the one who's going to finish it, meaning with Mashiach Tzidkenu. Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Chabibi, I see. In other words, what Moshe Rabbeinu was then trying to accomplish is, he was saying, Eibishter, anyways, I'm not going to facilitate the proper Kalim for Elokos to be revealed in the world. I'm anyways going to only bring, Kalim which could do so much, They could infuse Gashmis and Ruchnius together, and so on and so forth. I'm saying, but look at us, Mashiach's not here. So Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to avoid this whole 2,000 years in Galus. He was saying, Eibishter, let someone like Mashiach, which is yes capable of speaking, which means he's yes capable of making the Elam Hazeh Gashmi a Kli for Elokos, let him be the one to start and finish the process all at once. Of what? Of Hashem, the Eiris, the Atzmus Mahos, Bli Gvul, being revealed inside Gvul. Hashem didn't appreciate this, by the way. Hashem told him, Chabibi, you know what? Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to be the Kohen Gadol. The family of Kohanim was supposed to come from Moshe Rabbeinu. But Mamish, Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't even know who his children are. We do, I'm saying. But the destiny didn't continue through his children. Aaron HaKohen took over the Kihuna, and so on and so forth. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem wasn't happy with it. Of course, it all makes sense. But I'm just saying, technicalities of the story, Aaron will be a spokesman. Okay, what's the point? Point is that we find the same pattern of now.
I have a question.
Oh, the David, you call in a suspicious moment.
Who's holy here? Who do we hold holy here? Aaron or Moshe?
Moshe Rabbeinu, no question about it.
No question.
No question.
No questions.
Not no questions asked, but no questions in the first place. Moshe Rabbeinu was higher than Aaron for sure. So the Nakuda is, David, good hearing your voice. So the Nakuda is that Moshe Rabbeinu, the same pattern of not wanting to go into Parei, that same pattern already started earlier with him stuttering. It's the same idea. Oire is not coming into Caleb. Hashem responding, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll combine the Eretz and the Caleb. Now, here comes the pintele of the whole Sikha. Okay? Why? Why was it so important to the Eibishter that Eiris and Kalim should come together? Why was it so important to the Eibishter that Dafka, the stuttering person, should become the Nasi Adar? Why was it so important to the Eibishter that Moshe Rabbeinu should go Dafka into Parei the way he is, the way the crocodile is inside his Nile, meaning the way he is inside his deepest levels of Klipa, which now we understand it also means the highest levels of Kedusha. Why was the Eibishter so persistent? And the answer is, what's the whole goal of going out of Mitzrayim? Now, this is going to answer, by the way.
The lowest.
Oh, this is going to be actually the answer to our original question, which is, why is the name of the parasha Boel Parei, which means that the name of the Geula, is Boel Parei. How is Boel Parei the beginning of the Geula, the name of the Geula? So this following point is going to be answering that question as well. The whole purpose of going out of Mitzrayim is that when we go out of Mitzrayim, we're going to go serve Hashem on this mountain, which means in simple words, Matan Torah. Hashem wants to make us a Mamlechas Koyanim, Begoy Kadosh. Hashem wants to make us a beautiful, holy, priestly nation by giving us the Torah. What's Matan Torah? We all know. Matan Torah is not just where Hashem gave us a rule book. Matan Torah is when Hashem broke the decree and the boundary between Elyonim and Tachtonim, Gashmis and Ruchnius, Gvul and Bli Gvul. That means that to begin with, Hashem's goal was not just that Moshe Rabbeinu should walk into Parei. Hashem's goal is that every single Yid should be able to walk into Parei. Every single Yid should be able to walk into Kodesh HaKodashim. Every single Yid should be able to walk into the deepest levels of Kedusha possible. By number one, every Yid having that level within him, the Etzem HaNeshama. And number two, B'Pe'ol Mamish, through Torah and Mitzvahs, making the world capable enough, making the world enough of a vehicle for Hashem Himself to be present in it through His Ratzon being fulfilled and His Torah being learned. And we all know that Torah is Anon Nafshik Savis Yehavas. Torah is the Eibishter Himself. So by learning Torah, we're partially connecting to the deepest and most intimate levels of Hashem. And same thing goes with mitzvahs. Matan Torah accomplished that. So the best and most important preparation for Matan Torah is this clear awareness that Gvul and Bli Gvul could in fact connect. A finite being which is created by Hashem, being that we have a part of Hashem within us, being that Hashem is personally Boil Pare, holding our hands and escorting us, every single Yid, no matter where he is, being that that's the case, therefore we are all able to connect to Bli Gvul. Meaning, right now, the way we are physical human beings in this world, and the Rebbe makes a very beautiful observation. We're not just talking about the neshama. Rather, fakir, on the contrary, we're actually primarily are addressing the nefesh bahamis. We're addressing the guf. We're addressing the physical body. We're addressing the animal soul within us. Every single Yid, the way he exists, meaning every single one of us, the way we are inside a physical body, the way we are with the nefesh bahamis, with our taives, and with our crooked perspective on life, and whatever it is, Hashem is exposing us constantly, right now, in this moment, to a etzem neshama that exists within us, meaning to the Eibishter Himself. Hashem is constantly exposing the lowest levels of a Yid to the deepest levels of Elokus. And Hashem is telling us that you should know that you are able to live with the Etzem Neshama, you're able to live with the deepest levels of Hashem, not just if you escape your physical body, but with your physical body. You're able to take the gvul, the physical life that you live in, with the house and the car, and the human and physical mentality that we live in, and you're able to reveal the Etzem and Neshama over there. You're able to reveal and live with the Eibishter's pure perspective of Einad Milvadi. And that not just nothing else matters as much as Hashem, but nothing else even exists other than Hashem. And I'm able to live in that mindset in my day-to-day Nefesh Bahamis life. I'm able to take the Bli Gvul and completely infuse it into the Gvul. This is Matan Torah. The preparation for Matan Torah was Hashem telling Moshe Rabbeinu, Boil Pare, I will make you a kli for Atzmus Umus. Don't be worried about having a place in Nefesh. In other words, what's a better title for the, by the way, Matan Torah, which we just described until now, is not just Matan Torah. That's the whole point of creation. That's the Geula Amitis Vashlema that we just described over here. The Geula Amitis Vashlema, which of course began in very big steps by Matan Torah, and that already began by Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that already began apparently by Boil Pare, and in fact that already began when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, stop complaining about your stutter, Mi Sam Pela Adam. It's one long process with one common thread, with one goal, which is, I'll take the gvul of this world and I'll make it a kli for the Bli Gvul to shine through it. Not by ignoring the gvul side of it, but by infusing the Bli Gvul into the gvul. By taking the purest and most abstract level of I'm a chassid, there's an Eibishter, Einad Milvadoi, I Pasha couldn't care less about Taivos. That deepest pure side of me, I'm able to inject that into my day-to-day life when I'm talking to non-Jewish people, and when I'm talking to my business co-workers, and when I'm dealing with people on the bus. Pasha, the most physical human mentality, I'm able to infuse that Einad Milvadei purity into my day-to-day life. To be so diplomatic and so nice and so eloquent, so kind and so understanding of people in the world, but at the same time, Pasha couldn't care less about Hanachas Ha'ilam, and couldn't care less about things which are just there to tickle my ego, and couldn't care less about things which are just there to give me pleasure. No, on the contrary, I'm fully focused on the purpose and the goal, on why we're here and why this is here, why the whole world is here, which is of course to reveal the Eibishter. So now we understand that what's a better title for the Geula HaAmitis Vashlema then Baal Parei. Baal Parei is Hashem saying, I'm making you a finite being, a kli for Atzmus Umahus. What's a better title than that? It answers our questions before we even asked it. If the title would have been, I don't know, V'lakachti, V'eitzesi, V'ga'alti, V'evesi, then we would right away say, Eibishter, the Geula is amazing, but where am I in the picture? What do I have to do? I have to divorce my family, I have to disconnect from the world. What do I need to do? Hashem is answering the question before we even asked it. The name of the parasha is Baal Parei. The name of the Geula is Baal Parei, which means be a human being. Be a physical human being. And as you are a limited physical human being, that's how I want to take you into Parei. That's how I want to reveal to you both how to break the klipa and how to experience the highest levels of Kedusha. Now the Rebbe connects all this to Yud Shvat. Yud Shvat is a day where on the Yortzeit of a Tzaddik, the Neshama goes Adrin Basar Adrin. All of this that we just said about a Tzaddik, Moshe, I forgot to mention, very important. This is an important link for the Yud Shvat. We're almost done. The Yud Shvat, when Moshe Rabbeinu was instructed Baal Parei, Moshe Rabbeinu received this empowerment to be able to go into Parei of Kedusha. The fact that the Nasi Adair was given this empowerment affected the entire Dair, the entire generation, all the Yidden, in other words, should be able to also experience Baal Parei. So in other words, an Aliyah in the Nasi Adair equals an Aliyah in every single person in the generation. So Yud Shvat is a day when the Frierdiker Rebbe, this is what the Rebbe says in the Sikha, it's a day when the Frierdiker Rebbe goes Adrin Basar Adrin, goes room within room from one level to the next level, and the Nasi and the Frierdiker Rebbe is being Baal Parei, is being exposed to the highest level of Kedusha. And that happening to the Nasi Adair, to the Frierdiker Rebbe, affects every single one of us. That we're all on Yud Shvat, we are all taken to a higher level. We are all taken to this extreme balance and this extreme capability to be able to reveal the Gvul in the Bligvul, to be able to reveal the Bligvul of Baal Parei with the Gvul of our human self. So in other words, this experience of Baal Parei is what happens on Yud Shvat. That's what the Rebbe says. One last point that I want to stel sich on as a conclusion.
What happened on the Shvat with the Frierdiker Rebbe?
The Frierdiker Rebbe has a Yortzeit.
Yeah.
So the Rebbe says we say Kaddish on a Yortzeit. We should never know. None of us should ever have to say it. But there's a Kaddish. Why? Because the Neshama goes to a higher level. On the day of Vayistalkus of a Tzaddik, Kol Ma'asav V'Torah V'Avodas Yasher Avad become mayor in the world, and the tzaddik himself goes to a higher level. Higher does not chashal mean more disconnected and removed from our reality, but it means the neshama is exposed to a much deeper level of So Hashem is telling the Frierdiker Rebbe, Baal Parei, I'm taking you to a much higher level. But if that happens to the Nasi Adair, it affects all of us.
How could the neshama go? This is a totally different subject, but how can the neshama go to a higher level if the neshama itself is pure?
Right. So that's a good question. So the ultimate answer to that question is going to be only in the experience, not in the reality. Meaning the way the neshama is experiencing itself and what's going on around it is that the neshama is being exposed and experiencing a higher level, a more pure level of Hashem. Fine. Okay, so we'll finish with this now. One last nekuda, which is very, very crucial, which is one of the siches. This is a combination of three siches, and one of these siches was sicha that was said on Gimel Shvat, which was a weekday, and the sicha was pashat, a scary sicha. The Rebbe suddenly, it's a recording actually, you could hear it. The Rebbe suddenly says a sicha. What's the sicha? The Torah tells us that when Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Hashem that he's not a kli, Moshe Rabbeinu was eventually cured by Matan Torah. The Rebbe points out the whole time in Egypt he wasn't cured. Hashem wanted it to be more of a miracle. It was a miracle. Only eventually he was cured by Matan Torah, which is that being cured.
He was able to speak?
By Matan Torah he was completely cured, yeah. Just like all the Yidden were completely cured. And the Rebbe learned this for a reason. But the point that the Rebbe makes, the observation that the Rebbe makes, is that physically physically, Moshe Rabbeinu was unhealthy already the whole time of Mitzrayim. It was just began a miracle. So how would he communicate? So one way of looking at it is that Hashem made a miracle that when he was talking, he came out eloquent and nice. But the simple pshat is that that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke stuttering, and Aaron interpreted it nicely. So now, Gimel Shvat Tavshin Beis, the Rebbe is saying all this, and then suddenly the Rebbe starts saying the scariest thing. The Rebbe says that by the Frierdiker Rebbe we find that the Frierdiker Rebbe's whole koch was Hafatzas Hamayonis. The whole koch of the Frierdiker Rebbe was bringing Chassidus and bringing Torah, Yiddishkeit, and making it accessible and available to everyone in the world.
Masses.
To the masses. But the last few years of Frierdiker Rebbe's life, the Frierdiker Rebbe was suffering the gashmis. He could barely talk. And that affected, says the Rebbe, that he said, the Rebbe makes sure to add the word kivyachol, which means that the Rebbe is not be'etzim limited. It was apparently a choice that the tzaddik, the Rebbe agreed to, or of course decided. But whatever the case is, point is that the Frierdiker Rebbe, there was less maimorim, less sichos, and it was because physically, so the Rebbe actually says that the Frierdiker Rebbe had a doctor, which was not just a doctor. The Rebbe points out he was a professor, which is the higher level than a doctor. And the professor asked him, you, out of everyone, Hashem should give you the most speech. Hashem sees how much you need it in the world. Hashem sees how much you need for Hafatzas Hamayonis. Hashem should have blessed you with an extra ability to have speech. What is this? The Rebbe clarifies, who are we to ask questions on Hashem? But still, it says the Rebbe, we are human beings. We want to understand whatever we could understand. So the Rebbe wants to figure out, why did the Frierdiker Rebbe, which is whole vort of Hafatzas Hamayonis, dafka him Hashem said not to? Hashem took away his ability to speak on the most part. And the Rebbe answers a very scary answer. Very scary answer. Imagine the Chassidim are listening to this Gimel Shvat Tavshin Beis. They didn't know Gimel Tammuz was going to happen, yeah? So when they hear this kind of sicha, this was the first time, you read the Yemanim, this was the first time, to imagine Gimel Tammuz, that's a no-no, obviously. But this was the first time that like...
Gimel Shvat or Gimel Tammuz?
So the sicha was at Gimel Shvat.
On days.
I'm saying the Chassidim didn't know...
2 years earlier.
Chassidim didn't know that it was going to be Gimel Tammuz, yeah? So I'm saying the following sicha is a very scary sicha because it's Mamash the Rebbe preparing us. As crazy and scary that sounds, but it's important to be aware that the Rebbe prepared us for where we are, and the Rebbe expects from us with an avodah. What's the avodah? The Rebbe says that Aaron Achicha Yeneviecha means, yeah, you're not a kli. I'm going to give you Aaron HaKoyen to be your hands and feet. Aaron HaKoyen will speak on your behalf. Says the Rebbe, in other words, what's the answer to this taina about the Frierdiker Rebbe? That the Eibishter expects that the Chassidim should be the hands and feet, the mouth of the Frierdiker Rebbe. That which was missing from the Frierdiker Rebbe not being able to speak B'Gashmius, Kiviyachol. The Chassidim have the responsibility to make up for it. Whatever my Marim and Sichos couldn't have been publicized because of Frierdiker Rebbe or whatever. So we have the duty to make sure that extra my Marim and Sichos are being publicized. It's the scariest answer. The Rebbe is not saying that really the Frierdiker Rebbe whatever. And the Rebbe is saying the Frierdiker Rebbe is in this condition. Why? So the Chassidim should make sure to be the Aaron Achicha Yeneviecha. So the Chassidim should be the hands, the mouth, the feet of the Frierdiker Rebbe.
Why is that scary?
Because what the Rebbe is basically telling us is that there's such a concept that the Nasi Adoir is not around Begashmius in a way that everyone in the world could hear him physically, and it's going to be the job of the Chassidim to be the spokesman of the Rebbe.
Why is that scary?
Because at that time, for us, it's the reality that at least I was born into. Most of us were born into this reality. So for us, it's just a piece of history, or better to say, that's a grubber way of saying it. But the proper way of saying it is, it's a part of the puzzle that the Rebbe created. But at that time, for the Chassidim, the Rebbe is basically telling them, there's going to be a time that I'm not going to be telling you sichos. It's not about the responsibility. It's about the Rebbe is telling them there's going to be a time when the Rebbe is not going to be saying physical sichos. For a chassid to hear that the Rebbe is telling him there's going to be a time when the Rebbe is not going to be saying sichos, you know how scary that is? Like, what do you mean, Rebbe? You're leading us to Mashiach all the way. Like, there's no breaks in between. Now, again, we were born into this reality. So for us, what all this means to us is that the Rebbe, like Reuven is saying, is giving us a responsibility. And it's important to look at it this way. But I'm just pointing out that, by the way, for them back then, hearing this Sikha, it was the first time ever hearing that the Rebbe is like referring to the Nasi Adar as someone who's going to need the Hasidim to communicate his messages because he's not going to be doing it on his own. And it's scary. I would be terrified if I would hear such a Sikha before Gimel Tammuz. Ben Agelin, what's the point? The point. Right, 100%.
No, that's even crazier, no?
That, in a sense, yeah. But this is like more like the physical element of things. Because the Rebbe is talking about like the Rebbe not feeling well, and the Rebbe not being able to speak, and it's going to be, but the whole purpose is going to be for the Hasidim to take over, like not to take over, but to be the communicators. It's a little bit more of a personal, like human, physical type of language that the Rebbe is talking here. Now the Rebbe, of course, clarifies that this is all true only in previous generation. In our generation, says the Rebbe, and this is all the Mashpim bring and explain different biurim and sichos. I'm not here to explain and to give biurim. I'm just putting a sicha. The Rebbe says that in our generation, which is of course the truth, that in our generation where we don't have the problem that Moshe Rabbeinu is not healthy, we don't have the problem that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to need Aaron to be his Neviyecha. Rather, on the contrary, we're going to be going to the Gula Amitis Vashlema with Gufim Brim and Shamas Bris and so on and so forth. What's the takeaway of the Sikha in regards to this last point? That the whole point of the Sikha is that this physical world is limited. And the whole point of the Sikha is that Baal Parei, that the Nasi Adayr and Yud Shvat goes to a much higher level of Ligvul. And all of us ascend to that higher level as well. It's a matter of us learning and thinking and fabringing and tapping into this level of Baal Parei, this level of Hashem, which is allowing us, as we are physical human beings, to connect to Atzmus Amos, to the Eibishter himself, and to connect the world around us to Atzmus Amos, to the Eibishter himself, to this intense level of Inun Muvadoi, Baba Shad, or physical and we're human. All this being said, the Rebbe concludes with this tremendous responsibility, which this is what we just finished off with, that when we are in a matziv, that Moshe Rabbeinu, the Gashmius, is not being heard, we have the duty to make sure that the Moshe Rabbeinu is heard. We have the duty to make sure that the world is a kli, and that the world is, yes, accepting and receiving and hearing the messages of the Nasi Adayr. Practically, what does this mean? We have to learn the Rebbe's Torah in an abundance, and we have to share with people around us stories of the Rebbe, Igrish from the Rebbe, Sichos of the Rebbe, Fabrengens of the Rebbe, Ma'imorim of the Rebbe. We are the Aaron Achicha Yerev Yecha. We have to be the Rebbe's spokesman. Not that the Rebbe needs us, but the Rebbe is giving us the privilege, the Rebbe is giving us the opportunity to be Ligyonei Shel Melech, to be the Rebbe's army, to verbalize and publicize to the world the Rebbe's messages. Of course, the most important message is that the world's already a kli for the Gula Amitis Vashlema, and Baal Parei has already taken place, Beruchnius, and we're just opening up our eyes, Begashmius, to see how it's taking place, Begashmius as well. So we could start living with the Gula Amitis Vashlema already now. We could already now go Baal Parei with this intense level of lakos in our human physical life. So l'chaim livrocha, everyone.